Hi, my name is Sam Bolton. I'm the CEO and founder of the Little Guy Foundation.
Hi, I'm Julianne. I'm the newest and first intern for the Little Guy Foundation. And I just wanted to ask you, Sam, what we're doing here with Little Guy and why we're in Ecuador for this foundation.
So to start off, I'll go with some background information on what Little Guy is. We're a nonprofit based out of Atlanta, Georgia. It's mostly run by really passionate college students, including myself and Julianne here. Kids that just really care about trying to help the world in different ways. And the main thing that we work with is art and how we can use art to help amplify and support local communities around the world. So we have some programs locally in the States, some education programs with our local YMCAs. We've taught poetry and different creative writing courses at different high schools. And now we've expanded internationally and we are working with different community organizers in Ecuador, Peru, and soon to be Tanzania.
So I traveled to Ecuador while Sam is here, and I'm going to be here for a month working with the various nonprofits that Sam has created relationships with and trying to establish kind of like what services they need and what we can help them with.
So what I want to ask you is, just so we can talk a little bit about why you're here and what you're going to be doing, tell me what you're most excited about in being our intern and kind of why it matters to you to do this kind of work.
I think I'm most excited about creating a community and really engaging with locals internationally based on a common goal of establishing a community of artists and helping them kind of reach their dreams when they don't have access to all of the funds and the opportunities that people do in the United States. I'm really passionate about bringing opportunities to people who aren't given them at birth. And I think Little Guy is doing a great job of that with the work that they're doing here.
It's so amazing to see how when passionate students just try something, we can actually just make it happen. And one thing that I want to talk about, at least with Little Guy and what we're doing moving forward, is just the importance of working with local organizers, reaching out to local organizers. The one we're working with here is a nonprofit based in a small town. It's actually outside of a town, there's Quito, then there's a small town, Tembillo, and then outside of that is Merco, which is where...
Even smaller town.
Even smaller town. And we had to take a bus, a tram, a bus,
and two taxis
just to get to one of the projects that she's going to be working on. And one thing that I think is just so beautiful about doing things so organically is these are organizations that haven't gotten resources from American organizations. This isn't one of those big nonprofits that everyone's heard of, that everyone donates to. This is these organizations are just trying to do the best with what they can for their community. With this organization specifically, one of their projects is working with local women and just basically recycling the one grant that they got this one time to buy livestock at a young age and then give that to local women. Then the women raise it that they can sell back and then give half of the profits back to the local women. It's just beautiful the way that all that works out. Working to just help with the financial situation of local organizations. One thing I'm really excited about, and I think that we can both relate to, is just the beauty of amplifying art and artistry. As you mentioned, it is so beautiful to help give people the opportunity to express themselves and then not only watch that flourish, but then be able to then share that with other people around the world. Because I feel that's something we're missing right now, is an appreciation for other cultures, other voices. I feel there's so much hatred in the world, and what we need to kind of combat that hatred is just understand each other and to see the lives of other people and just understand each other fully. So I'm excited to see what you do and just to see what we can keep doing here in Ecuador and stuff.
Sam, you've been traveling extensively through Ecuador and Peru these last few months, and I just wanted to know what you've learned from it so far and how that ties back to Little Guy.
Okay, so yeah, I've been traveling for about almost 5 months now. One thing I learned is just the importance of local organizers and what they actually do for the community. And there's a lot going on in the world right now, especially with certain pauses on foreign aid from the States, because a lot of local organizers do rely on funds from the US. There's actually been a cascade of effects on local communities and local organizers that depended on those grants. And so watching not only how important those organizations are to those communities, but then also how important more local donations are to those organizers, and how there's just such a limited pool of resources for these organizers. And then seeing how so much of it ends up going to these big nonprofits that are not connected to the local organizers at all, or not connected even to the local organization or the local communities that they talk about. So I just learned how important it is to be able to connect with local organizers. And since Little Guy is all about art, one thing I learned as far as like the importance of artistry, which the main reason I traveled was because I wanted to make sure what I'm trying to do is something that people need. Like you can say, oh, I think they're gonna need this. I think this is something I like, this is something I want, so they're gonna want it. I've done nonprofit work in Hungary, I've done volunteer work in Africa, Tanzania specifically, and then now I've been here, and one thing I realized is like, not everyone needs what you think they need. And what you have to do before you try to help anyone is ask them, what do you need help with?
Exactly.
And I remember, especially with art, it was like, I remember a big realization I had when I was volunteering in Zanzibar was, they don't need creative writing classes, they need a hospital. And I remember thinking like, okay, so that's, all right, lesson learned. Like there is gonna be times where it's not about me. Like it's not about me or what I want for people, it's about what they actually need. But then coming to Ecuador, I was shocked and in a really beautiful way at how open and also like excited people were to hear about creative writing classes or just the idea of, you know, having art classes for kids. So when I worked with Venezuelan refugees at an organization in Cuenca, the Grace Foundation, they already had like some music programs that were specifically instituted because they had seen issues with mental health in their kids because, you know,
refugees.
Yeah, these children who had to leave their home and like, you know, have in Ecuador, there's a lot of prejudice against Venezuelans. So it was already like a lot at play, and giving kids an outlet was so important. And so like, you know, the owner of Grace, she's an amazing woman, and she's kind of doing what I did, and she realized, okay, this is what these kids need. This is what my community needs. This is what we're going to do. And so then when I came and I was like, if you guys are interested, this is something that I could try to provide. We have a curriculum, And she was so excited. And seeing not only how the kids that we taught, they were just, it's not something you see often, like poetry classes. And the poetry that was written was just so beautiful and just so like representative of experiences and stories that you'll never hear in America. Like it's, you know, being able to experience that and give that to people, and then also like seeing how important marketing and media is for these organizations, because they are so busy doing the on the ground work with small teams, small budgets. They're trying to provide for all the refugees in a city while like trying to also uphold, you know, their administration, their services, everything. And so then at the end of the day, it's like, what are we going to do with our Instagram, our social media? Like that's the hardest part.
How are we going to show people that the work we're doing is important, and how are we going to get more donations?
Right. And then also, you know, I think it's really important that it's not just trying to capture the misery and the pity. Like I remember when I was doing photography and like media for them, everyone was happy, and it was like, this is what we should capture. We should capture the beauty of the community, not, oh, these children are so sad, donate. And it's that cycle of like misrepresenting people as like someone that, you know, just needs, and it's like, no, these are people that are working hard to support themselves.
Yeah.
But there are some circumstances that just have to be, you know, like need extra resources and stuff. I think one of the most beautiful things that people can do is share their own story. And I think one thing that a lot of nonprofits and like people from the States or from affluent areas do is they go to places and they report on a people, on a community. And I think what's more important is giving those people the microphone and the ability to speak for themselves and the resources they need to learn how to express themselves. Like, I think that poetry is one of the most powerful things in the world. Like, that's biased. I love poetry, but like a poem from someone that's a local from an area talking about their experiences is more powerful than a white person that went to this area doing a poem about, like, that's even, you know, just saying, oh, this is what happened. So in general, that is what I've learned, and just what Little Guy means to me. I think it's a way for people to be heard, to express themselves, and for the world to just come together through art, through humanity. And I think that's just a beautiful thing.
Yeah, thank you,
so
Sam.
long.
No, it's okay. You're really passionate about what you do. It's natural that you're going to want to go monologuing.
Yeah, right. Moving from Little Guy specifically, you've traveled a lot, so extensively, and we know that. I want to kind of hear about, in general, when you've traveled, what do you feel like, how have you felt impacted by traveling with intention? Like traveling and working with local organizers, how do you feel like if that's more powerful than just traveling to travel?
So whenever you're going to a place for the sole purpose of either establishing connections with people who live there, or the sole purpose of helping a nonprofit that's operating there, I feel like you develop an understanding of the place and the culture much, much deeper than you would if you were there for the same amount of time, purely because you are with these people most of the day. You're speaking in their language, you're discovering their needs, discovering what their day-to-day lives are like.
Right.
And you can't get that if you're just traveling through the area like hostel to hostel. You never really get to experience the country because you're never talking to anybody who's from here. Shared humanity is something that is lacking in this world, and people have this idea of like us or them, or like, oh, it's not affecting me, so it doesn't matter. Literally every person has a story. Every single person deserves to tell it. And just because someone's from the global south doesn't mean that they need foreign aid. Like, no, people are so passionate about working hard for themselves and providing for their families and providing for the lives that they want. It's just a matter of the institutions that have been in place for like literally hundreds of years have made it so that it's so difficult to get out and like express themselves and like get their word out to more people. And sorry, I'm really passionate about this as well.
No, I love it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most important things. If you can't manage to like go out of your way to meet local people and understand their stories, then you aren't really experiencing the country that you're visiting.
Heavy on that.
Yeah.
Heavy on that. And okay, just a little side question. You speak really good Spanish. And so how do you feel like, because I feel like for me in the past, I've had a lot of issues with language barriers when I travel. And I guess in the States, we don't really have an emphasis on learning other languages at all. How do you feel like knowing the language and being able to actually speak to local people, how has that changed your experiences here and in Spain?
Well, I can definitely do a little comparison of the two. When I studied abroad in Spain for a year with the Georgia Tech exchange program, and I was basically like alone for the whole time. I figured it all out on my own and went to the school on my own and got the credit transferred on my own. And I went to Spain with like literally zero Spanish. Yeah. And at the beginning, it's difficult because if you're taking classes in English, you make friends in English, and even if they're Spanish, if they speak English, you speak English with them. There's this level of understanding that you simply can't grasp when you don't have the same native tongue. And I mean, I know you understand that as well. I think whenever I was in Spain and had friends who were international students and was taking my classes in English, I could understand the Spanish experience from a very outside view.
Right.
But then towards the end of my exchange program, when I understood more Spanish and I was speaking more, not fluently, I'm nowhere near fluency, but speaking more eloquently.
Yeah.
I got to know a couple more Spanish students and started talking to my Spanish friends in Spanish, and I realized like how much of their personality I had missed.
Yeah,
just like not even been able to comprehend in English because the words and like the phrases they use are completely different. Whereas like now in Ecuador, my Spanish is a lot better, and I've been able to make these like really, really sweet connections with people in their native tongue, and it's been so beautiful because they may not know that I'm funny, but I can tell they're funny.
Right, and you can say, at least you know how to say like I'm funny in Spanish. Like, at least you can say in another language, trust me, I'm funny. Which I've definitely had to say a lot. But no, I definitely understand that. I feel like, yeah, that's one thing with traveling, and like the difference between like traveling with the intention of like working with local people versus just traveling to travel. Because like in South America, where you travel, where it's like safe to travel, there's other people traveling.
Yeah.
And those other people traveling might not know Spanish. Often
they don't.
even if they do know Spanish, everybody knows English, so then you're speaking English. So you're in these countries thinking you're going to get this like local experiences. Even if you're in a small town, like you're going to find someone who speaks English, and they're going to speak, or someone's going to speak English to you. And that's fine. And it definitely, like for me, I came to South America not knowing nothing. And it was definitely a struggle. And it's like you just experience, it's a different experience. Like the first half of my travels when I like really struggled with Spanish and didn't have even the confidence to try that much, it was like I was only talking to travelers. Then the second half, when I actually like figured it out and started like, you know, actually trying and really making that a priority for me. The people I'm gonna talk to after this trip, the people that like have had impact on my life and that hopefully I've impacted their life, those are people like locals. It's locals and people that speak Spanish, like, and being able to cross that barrier changes what you're able to like
experience and see and understand.
Yes, and like the connection at a very fundamental level is just better. Like it's just you're able to connect.
I think that's something also like really important with nonprofits that a lot of them don't have either the resources to do or just don't do, is visiting their partners regularly in their native tongue and understanding their needs and like actually seeing what's going on and seeing exactly where the money is going and what they're doing with it, because it's difficult to get people on the ground in the projects that you're sponsoring or you're funding.
Yeah.
And I think that's something really beautiful, like that we're getting to do in Ecuador, is literally like taking bus after bus after bus to get to this nonprofit that's doing this necessary work for local people, that a lot of the times many nonprofits don't get to do or don't get to do regularly.
I can make a comparison because I was called, the woman who owns this foundation, I met through my Spanish teacher. So once again, the beauty of like organic connections and like just talking. Also, real quick sidebar, the beauty of passion, because when you're passionate about something and you just talk about what you're passionate about, doors open. So when I was talking to my teacher about what I'm passionate about, next thing you know, now we have a partner.
I have an idea.
Right, like, oh my gosh, I know someone who's passionate, and boom, now we're working together. But my comparison is when I was, so about probably a little over 3 months ago, I had my first call with the woman who owns our partner organization. And I remember this was back when I barely spoke any Spanish. I feel like I had a much different idea of what they did. And I was like, okay, you guys do something good. I'm getting that much. But
You're passionate, you're doing something good for the people.
Right, like you're in a small area outside of Quito, got it. Like I could easily just be like, okay, we're gonna donate to you. You sound great, we're gonna donate to you. But being able to be here, and now also I speak a lot better Spanish than, Julianne as well. And then we're able to go, like she said, bus after bus, taxi on taxi, go and see. And when I tell you, like, I didn't really have that many ideas before of like, okay, how are we gonna help? Because I didn't really know what they did. So then now that we're there, it's also like anybody come to a country and be like, I'm gonna get you money. Like, and that's something, we could just be like, okay, we're gonna get you some money. But being able to like meet these people that care and see where the actual, like what they're actually missing. Like, yes, money, everyone's missing money, but there's like other opportunities, and to like feel the passion in person, to literally see the passion from these people, like it's inspiring, and it gave us so many ideas as to what we could do for them, like actually intentionally with purpose, not just like we want to say we did something, like we want to help. And I think that's super important.
So Sam, all of these travels you've been doing, like obviously you meet people along the way, but you're doing them completely alone, right? And how has your experience been as like a solo female traveler through South America, especially because it's some of your like first really big travels? South America is a big leap from the States.
Yeah.
How have you felt, and what have you learned from being alone as a woman?
That's such a good question, and I think you learn so much, and I would definitely recommend solo travel to anyone everywhere, no matter gender, anything. Like you can do it. But I will say, definitely doing a big trip like this, I definitely had to work up to it, did some study abroads. If you want to like thrive while traveling, like, you need to just be so secure in your ability. But I think one thing I really want to do, like with my platform, or just with, hopefully one day a platform, and just in general, like I really want to inspire women specifically to solo travel, but not just to travel in the way like what we were talking about, where you just travel and go to hostels.
But travel with intention.
Traveling with intention, and also like being willing to adventure, like to really adventure. And that's honestly not even just for women, like honestly for Americans. Like, I just feel like I meet Americans every once in a while, and it's just so...
They're scared.
Yeah.
And they have right to be. They have a right to be. And I understand where that fear comes from.
Our classrooms. Yep.
But I think there's a really big importance for anyone, especially women, to leave the States at the very least, or just leave their home countries and see what life outside their home countries are like without any other outside input. So when you're solo, you're just thinking about what you're doing, and you're thinking about the people that like you're meeting, and you're not influenced by anyone else. And I think that's something really beautiful as well. You get to do whatever you want when you want, and it's a lot easier to move about and be adventurous.
I think that's one thing, because a lot of people I know are like waiting for the perfect time. Because I think
waiting for the perfect person.
Yeah, right. Like, okay, I need my group of friends to go. You're not gonna do a 6-month trip with a group of friends. Like, it's not gonna happen.
You have to increment. You have to do parts of it alone.
You have to do parts of it alone. And I think one thing you mentioned about seeing other ways of life, that is huge. Because I think, for me, for example, I'm the second youngest female solo traveler that I've met in 5 months. So like, there was one other girl who was like 20, but just younger 20, and she was like from Germany. And there were a couple other like male solo travelers, so like that's a little bit more common, that were like 19, but in general, like this age, it's also super uncommon to see solo female travelers at this age, and especially from the States. And I mean, really in general in South America, a lot of people travel like after they've started work, or in between jobs, stuff like that. But I think one thing that I think is so beautiful about what I've chosen to do, and I will say, like, I come from a place of privilege, and so there's a lot to be said there, but at the same time, most of what I'm spending on this trip, I got from a scholarship from our school. And I think being able to leave the States, not even just leave your hometown, like you gotta leave the States. You just gotta exit the bubble completely. And then you meet these people everywhere you go, especially if you're in hostels, especially the more, I feel like the more rugged the travel, the cooler people you're gonna meet. Like the craziest I've ever met.
The more interesting the stories you're
the
gonna
more
find.
interesting the stories, like in the corners of the towns that no one talks about, like that's where the stories are. And then you find out, oh, the person is like, okay, this guy from Germany, and he's talking about how he hasn't gone to college yet, but he feels like, he's gonna travel when he's young, and then he's gonna go to college later. And then Israelis have a very specific type of like life experience, life plan, where they go to the military and then travel before going to college. And it's like most people traveling are getting this chance to see who they are before they choose what they're gonna do.
A job or a partner or any of that. And that like it's fundamentally, when you're traveling alone in these early stages, it fundamentally changes the way that you see the world and the way you think about yourself and other people. And I feel like it's super important to do this before you make those big life changes and life decisions, because you really want to know who you are, what you want.
Yes.
And I'm not saying like traveling is gonna like make you find yourself, but like
it low key will though, like
it sounds very cheesy, but like it does make you reevaluate what your priorities are and what you actually want, because you're constantly being faced with difficult decisions every day.
And that's why I always put the emphasis on solo travel, because you just have to sit with yourself and you got to be comfortable with that. Waiting for the perfect time, it just doesn't exist. And the perfect time, and then waiting for, whenever my friends can go. And it's just one of those things where slowly tomorrow becomes never. And I think at some point, you just have to
Get up and go.
Get up and go. And there will never be a time where getting up and go doesn't mean leaving something behind.
Everything is a trade-off.
Everything. Because I remember thinking a big part of a decision for me was if I was going to keep traveling through my fall semester of school. And I remember thinking like, but I'm going to miss homecomings and stuff like that. And I think it's great to have that problem. What I'm sacrificing is, homecoming, whereas like other people, once you get into the real world, then it's like you're sacrificing money for your house, like a down payment, like whatever. And so I think the earlier the better. It's what I like to think, especially for women solo travelers, that's the opposite of what we're told.
But it's also like, if someone's like 30 and already made decisions in their life, it is literally never too late to change what you want. There's so much like bad rep around midlife crises, but they're important.
They're important.
If you don't have a midlife crisis, you're just gonna be miserable the rest of your life.
Exactly. That's why you have the crisis, because something's wrong.
Miserable.
Something's wrong. Oh my God, you were saying that feeling of being trapped, you're only trapped if you don't want to be there. Mm-hmm. That was such a good quote. I'm gonna write that down. But yeah, and I just think in general, like people in America feel so trapped, and it is kind of like
they trap themselves into like things that they think they need but they don't actually need, and then they feel like they can't leave or change. We're saying yes, it is best to do these things when you're young so you don't get into that mindset of being stuck, but it's also possible to come back after you've been stuck and reevaluate and reinvent yourself.
And I agree, because I think it is easier for me to be like, now is great, but it's also like, I know, once again, come from a place of privilege, a lot of people cannot travel at this age, and that's so understandable. Most of my friends, their plan is go out, get a job, get a good job, and then after a couple of years, go travel.
Swag, because you need money.
Yeah, because you do need money. And I think that is beautiful, as long as it's kind of like in the plan. And I think for women, I feel like there's a lot of pressure for women, especially with like the settling down, having lives and families and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I just think it is one of those things where like, definitely never be afraid to take a moment and be like, I'm not happy, I can make a change. There's just genuinely nothing you can't do. But from that, I know, at least for me, I'm budget traveling. I think you budget travel a good bit.
I've been spending like less than $5 a day on food.
Exactly. So with that, I want to ask you about your experience with budget travel. What have been your best memories from it, and then any tips you have?
With like budget travel in general, I think my best experiences were always staying with people, either like through a couch surfing website or a homestay. Those are usually the cheapest options too, and the most memorable. My favorite stories and my favorite experiences were literally just like staying in a house with other women from all ages. There's like, I stayed with a family, a very young family in Luxembourg. I stayed with an older woman who worked for the EU in Brussels. You meet all these crazy people who are so open to new experiences whenever you're doing things like couch surfing. I don't couch surf on the couch surfing app because you have to pay for it, and plus there's men on it. I'm very, very cautious of men because I'm a woman.
Yeah, right.
And so usually when I do those things, I go on websites or I find in forums that are specifically for women only. And I just had so many incredible experiences and learned so many new things about life and good advice and good recipes.
Yeah.
And so if anything, if you're trying to budget travel, literally stay with locals, find a WhatsApp chat where you can find somebody to stay with, even if it's like you pay them a little bit per day or for like a whole month, it's worth the discomfort at first.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's, especially with like housing, I think you've definitely found some great ways. Because hostels, obviously,
they're great if you're like last minute planning and like you want, like if you're missing home and you want like other Americans around you.
Yeah, I've never done any homestays or couch surfing.
But you're doing a great job of like actually meeting people in your day-to-day life.
For me, I'll stay at a hostel, but then I'll go like play basketball with locals or something, or I find a way to interact, because that is something that you do actually have to make that effort to like be around locals. I enjoy budget traveling. I really hope this is the poorest I'll ever be. Like I think I told you, like I hope I'm never this broke again in my life. So it's also like,
You're forced to do it, but it's also like you don't want to fall into like a comfort trap, you know?
Yeah, so I'm like, I feel like when I'm older, I probably won't push myself to some of the extremes that I've been. But
I'm already doing that. Like at 21, I've been so extreme in the past. Like I'm literally like, actually, I'm not going to do that anymore.
Yeah, like I've done it, I'm good. My best memory was from when I was hitchhiking. And like, to be fair, I didn't need to. And I feel like you definitely don't want to put yourself in situations.
You can travel dirt broke though.
You really can.
You can. It's just really uncomfortable.
And that's another thing. I will say, like, I'm saving money. I knew I wanted to take a gap year this year anyways, and I'm saving money by being abroad because
You're not paying rent.
Yeah. For me, I try to stay under $20 a day, which sounds like a lot, but then that's $600 a month, which is half of my rent in Atlanta. Not to mention that food in Atlanta costs almost 5 times as much as it costs here.
Yeah.
So it's in general, like, you can save money traveling. I think that's something people don't recognize, because when you think of like travel, you think of vacation.
Traveling for work, there are ways to live a less expensive life because you're traveling for such a long period of time.
Yeah, exactly. So if you ever get a chance to travel for a long period of time, you don't have to have that fear of like, I'm gonna spend all my money, or like this will just ruin the rest of my life. You can hold on to some money and like you can really plan ahead. And then when you're in these moments where you could take a bus, or you could hitchhike, and you choose to hitchhike because you want to save money, and then you have these experiences that you're gonna talk about for the rest of your life. For example, I didn't do Machu Picchu. I hitchhiked to Cusco, and I didn't really want to do it. I just didn't want to, but also I was stressed out about money. I was so stressed about money.
It's expensive.
Yeah, because that was when I made my decision. I wanted to keep traveling for the year. And like Machu Picchu, the cheapest way you do it would be like a little over 150 total. And to most people, it's like 150, that's nothing. That's a pair of shoes, whatever. But it's like, for me, that was just like, it was between that or being able to do this other hike I wanted to do. And it's just, so I made that decision not to do this thing that most people only go to Peru to do. But instead, I was just traveling super budget. And in that time, I had these memories that I feel like I will cherish more than I would have cherished looking
at Machu Picchu, going up and then being like, cool, and then going back down.
Yeah, and I think like tourist attractions are awesome. I'm sure it's beautiful. But to be fair, there's also ruins all around that area that are way less expensive. That nobody visits, and they're gorgeous. I had a moment where I was like sitting on this giant terrace alone because there was like nobody else there, and this llama was just next to me while I was eating a PB&J. I like that a little bit better. So anyways, I will say transportation is also something you can save a lot of money on. And there's definitely ways to do it. And then you have these experiences that you just will talk about for the rest of your life. What's one thing you want the audience?
The audience.
You guys, hi. What's something you want the audience to know or to understand about everything you've experienced?
Bro asked me to like make a quote for my life.
Really, truly. Condense it down, all of it.
I would say never underestimate a single person's value.
I love that.
Because a single person can literally change the entire course of a trip or your life. And you would never know unless you meet them.
Yep. That I can definitely attest. I can attest to that. That's so true.
What about you? What's like your life quote, or like the one thing that you want the audience to know?
The one thing. Oh, I've waited my whole life for this.
I'm about to spit fire.
Oh, the one thing I'll say is I think the purpose of life is to travel, create, and feel deeply. It's my bio. It's what I live by. It's my brand. Travel, create, and feel deeply. Yes. But what that really means is travel with intention. So, you know, the purpose of life is to see things, to experience. You want to experience life, and life that lives outside of you, because there's a world that exists with and without you. The world is small, but you're smaller. And not that you can't do big things, but that everyone is someone. We need to stop having that mindset that we are somehow better than someone else.
We're somehow somebody compared to somebody who lives somewhere else.
Exactly. So the travel is, you know, get to experience things outside of you, create. Obviously, I'm an artist, and I just think a lot of people are so scared to like call themselves artists, which
including me. I'm like terrified.
No, but it's like, I like to think like every time I meet a traveler, and they'll just like show me like, I don't know, if they wrote in a diary ever. Like, you're an artist. And then, or if, you know, like someone doodled one time, I'm like, yeah, you're an artist. Guys, you didn't know it, but you're an artist. And I just think being able to express yourself, not only do you get to share that with someone else, does someone else get to understand you on a level that you just simply can't reach without expression, but then you get to understand yourself. The act of creation is the act of understanding. And I think being able to reflect, and like that's one of my favorite things about travel is you just have time. You have time and space
To think.
I just hope that people take that thought and create. There'd be more love in the world if we created and shared more and then feel deeply. Feeling deeply is a beautiful thing. Like my least favorite word in the world is cringe. That word, it is literally, it was created to mock passion. To say something is cringe is to put down someone that cares.
And love something so much and you think it's cringe.
Yeah, like for someone to be able to like put enough energy into something, and not to say that there aren't things in this world that are cringe, but passion is not one of them.
Yeah.
And I think that for me, to feel deeply, if you're gonna travel, if you're gonna create, if you're gonna experience people and places, feel it. Like cry all the time.
If you're a solo traveling woman, you're gonna cry literally all the time.
And I just think, but I love it. When I'm on my deathbed, when it's like in my last few moments, I want to look back and say that I experienced life and I felt all of it. And never in life will you look back and be like, oh, I'm mad that I cried or that I was angry.
No.
You're gonna look back and be like, I lived and I felt all of the life that I lived. And I think that is the purpose of life, and that's how we connect to each other, is to care and to have that feeling.
Well, with that,
And that's a wrap.
thank you guys for staying.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think this will be up on the Little Guy YouTube, and we're gonna chop this up and put it into bits and pieces on different Instagrams. But please like and subscribe. You make a comment even if you're willing. But thank you for watching, and yeah,
See you next time.
woo! Oh, that was so fun. I actually so enjoyed that.